Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Facebook Live with GAE. I am Lisa Morgan, a kindergarten teacher and the current president of GAE.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carly Shaw. I am a science teacher in Houston County and the current GAE Secretary Treasurer.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is LaJoy Sanders, and I'm the academic coach in Muskogee County School District, and I'm also the vice president of our local Muskogee Association of Educators.
And I'm Joe Fleming. I'm the lobbyist for the association. Good to be with you tonight.
Great to have LaJoyce with us this evening. And Joe, it's been about a month since we talked with everybody on Facebook Live. So, Joe, I'm just going to throw it to you because even though Sine Die was how many months ago, we've got stuff happening at the legislature.
Yeah, I'm not looking back. We're looking forward. We are let's see, less than 2 months until the start of the next session of the Georgia General Assembly, which will begin Monday, January 8th, 2024. So obviously, Lisa, you know, and our members should know, we're busy meeting with legislators, talking about our priorities, making last minute adjustments to our plan for the session. But since we've last been on a call, there have been several key developments that our members should be aware of. Probably there's two items that made the headlines, and they're both very, very important to GAE. One is last week, the Lieutenant Governor announced he plans to introduce legislation to give teachers a $10,000 raise, which sounds great, except it will only go to teachers who take a firearm safety class and agree to bring their firearms to school. Lisa, I know you've talked to several reporters about that. You probably have a reaction to that, but certainly we're not interested in having our teachers, in addition to all the other jobs that they hold at the school, becoming law enforcement officers as well. Why don't you share some of the things you shared with the press in reaction to the Lieutenant Governor's proposal?
So, if you haven't seen, if you go to our YouTube page, GAE Voices, several of the interviews I did are there. The first word I used to describe this proposal was horrified. And that was literally my reaction. We know that teachers are burned out. We have a teacher shortage. And one of the things teachers say is, my plate is overflowing. LaJoyce and I were talking about that just before we started this evening, about all the things teachers have on their plate and everything we are trying to get done. So now you want us to be the security guards. I talked with a teacher from North Georgia, and she said, invite them to come to my classroom for an intruder alert drill. My number one role in that drill is to keep my children safe, calm, and quiet. And what's going to happen to calm and quiet if I'm going and unlocking the gun safe and getting a weapon out? And then if I'm supposed to leave the classroom to find the intruder, who's now taking care of my kids? Who's keeping them safe, calm, and quiet? It's just not realistic. And it's not something that educators want. It's not something parents want. It is literally, I read that this idea came forth because the superintendent said, I really need more funding for more school resource officers.
Right. And that's exactly, I think, one of the major motivating factors here. One senator was asked his reaction to the proposal, and he said it cost about $80,000 to hire and train a new resource officer. And he thought this was a cost-effective way for school systems to not have to spend $80,000. They can just spend 10 and get a teacher to bring their firearm into their classroom. I mean, if you are familiar with firearms, you need to be prepared to have it on your person and use it in the case of an emergency. It can't be locked up in the administrative office at the front of the school if it's going to be any good. So you have a situation where I assume we'll have teachers, if they, and by the way, this is a voluntary program, but teachers, if they decide to take advantage of this, actually have a holster and carry it on their person. And Lisa, it just seems to me it invites so much danger and so many opportunities for accidental discharge, for a student perhaps taking charge of that firearm. I have to believe that reasonable minds will, both Democrat and Republican, will reject this idea. But it is something the Lieutenant Governor said he plans to pursue. He held a news conference in one of the Barrow County schools. And it didn't even sound like the Barrow County school superintendent was really ready to warmly embrace the idea. But our members should be aware that this is some of the types of legislation that we see introduced every year.
I'm elementary. LaJoyce, you're in high school, right?
Right.
Carly, you're in middle school.
I'm in middle school, and there's no way I'm walking through the door with a gun.
And
that was my thinking at the high school. I'm at a Title I high school, and the thought of having to, I'm on I have 3 floors of my building. So if we have a weapon in the office, you're going down to the first floor to get the weapon out of a safe. Again, how safe is that internally? And if kids know we have guns at school, I'm very concerned that they'll feel like it's okay for them to start packing their guns in their backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
just to add briefly, Georgia actually already allows teachers and other educators to bring their firearms to class if the educator takes a safety class. But of the 180 counties or 181 school districts in Georgia, only 4 provide for that. And I imagine the rate of participation in that program is next to nothing, just because of the problems that you guys have outlined. But one of those crazy bills that comes along, we'll see. But obviously, we're going to be fighting against it and look forward to defeating it. The other thing, Lisa, that's huge is right after, well, let me back up just a second. As most of you know, every 10 years, the United States government conducts a census count where they try to get an accurate count on the number of folks living in the United States. And that's used to determine how federal dollars are spent. It's also used to determine representation in the United States Congress. Some, a high growth state may gain a congressperson based on the census numbers. But it's also used to draw and update state legislative lines, state Senate and state Senate lines, so that each district has a comparable number of voters in it. After the last census, which was in 2020, the General Assembly met and drew new maps, new congressional maps, and new state legislative maps as well based on that count. And almost immediately after they did, there was litigation over those the maps that were drawn. Well, just last week, a federal judge ruled that the maps that were drawn in 2021 were racially discriminatory, and he demanded that the state redraw their districts, not only the congressional districts, but the districts that comprise the state General Assembly. The judge gave the state of Georgia until December 8th to present new maps. So as a result of that, the governor has called for a special session that should begin November 29th to draw new districts. And this is really huge. The judge suggested that a 5th Black majority district could be drawn and should be drawn, at least 2 more Senate and 5 more House minority majority districts as well. And that's not enough to give Democrats control of the state Senate in Georgia, the state House, but it is possibly enough to give us a pro-education majority. When we beat the voucher bill this past year, we had 16 Republicans join us. All but 1 Democrat voted with us, but it was a 3-vote difference between the votes for and the votes against. 2 years prior, the pro-voucher folks tried to incrementally expand the existing special needs voucher, and they won by 3 votes. If we can pick up 5 pro-public education votes in the Georgia House of Representatives, that is a real game changer. Now, these new maps, once they're drawn, there may be litigation over the new maps. The state of Georgia may challenge them, but if they hold up, they will be in place in the next election. So they won't affect the composition this coming session, but they could have a significant impact going forward, and could result in some Republicans being drawn out of their district. So it is a big deal for GAE to see how these maps turn out. We'll keep you posted on that as that moves forward. But again, we've got a special session on beginning November 29th. It's the only item on the agenda. When the governor calls the special session, he can kind of pick and choose the topics that are on it, but there are no other topics really on the call for the special session. No education bills, like we're seeing in Texas. Texas right now, for example, is in a special session solely on vouchers. The governor wants to pass a voucher bill, but is having a difficult time out there. So between the gun bill that we talked about and the potential change in legislative maps and congressional maps, and the possible pickup of 7 new pro-public education legislative seats, that's a lot of big news in just like last month or so, Lisa. So wanted to share that with our members and make sure they're aware that we're tracking those things and let them know the importance of them.
Yeah. So Joe, I'm going to ask a question. I want to make sure everybody understands. So these new maps that will be drawn will not change who represents us right now, but should be in effect for the elections that will happen, the primary in May of 2024, and then the general election in November of 2024.
That is my understanding, yes. But there are, variable. I mean, there are things that could happen if the state files for a stay, or if the state challenges it, with a lawsuit. It could kick the can down the road a little bit longer. But I think the expectation of the judge and those following this is that these will be new maps in place for the 2024 elections. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if I'm not asking you to read the governor's mind, but it seems to me that if the governor thought that the state was going to appeal and it might get kicked down the road, he wouldn't have called a special session now.
Yeah, I think that's right. And in fact, the state announced today that they would not request a stay, giving them more time, that they were going to go ahead with the redistricting special session, reserving the right to challenge it. But they could have petitioned for a stay of the ruling, which would have delayed the special session, so that it might have had occurred actually during the regular session as well. So we're on schedule for the November 29th special election. Now, some people have asked me how long it's going to last. I've had a couple of meetings with legislators who anticipate between 5 and 10 days. 2 years ago, Lisa, you and I were at the state capitol during the redistricting special session there, and I think that went on 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But they do have that December 8th deadline to have back to the judge new maps that he can review.
Okay.
Joe, I got a quick question for you on those maps.
Yes, ma'am.
And someone may be asking that. So if they don't, if this special session does not meet that deadline, will the existing map still be in place for the May 2024 and November 2024?
That's a good question. And it's kind of similar to what happened in Alabama. Alabama was under a court order to redraw their districts. They held a special session and refused to do so. So the court basically implemented their own map. So the default, there is the possibility that the General Assembly either can't come to an agreement or refuses to draw new maps. And in that case, the judge would appoint a special master to draw those maps, which is a real wild card. He could draw much, much worse for Republicans than Republicans might do for themselves, where they're trying to, limit the damage, so to speak. But it's going to affect districts in Metro Atlanta all the way down to Albany, and it's difficult to redraw one map without it affecting other districts. So It's going to be interesting. We may see some retirements as a result of this, additional retirements from what we normally have, because we've got legislators whose districts have changed in a way that they don't think they can win re-election.
And I remember from last time, there was discussion that state law says you have to live in your district for 1 year before the election. So
I'm not sure how they worked around that. I'm still not clear
yeah,
on that.
I mean,
But
so if the district is redrawn and I live where I live, I've lived here for 25 years. So if I wanted to run and I'm all of a sudden, or if I'm a sitting legislator and my district is a completely new district now, that's going to be a big decision because you can't move because it's too late.
yeah, you're right about that. And legislators have to live in the district they represent. And I honestly don't recall how, because the maps were drawn after the 1 year period until the next election, and will be in this case as well. Perhaps the federal court ruling kind of supersedes that 1 year residency requirement. Now, members of Congress don't have to live in the district they represent. So if you end up with a new majority black or majority minority district, you could have people run from anywhere in those seats. And you know, if we do get that kind of new congressional district, I'm sure we'll have some of our friends in the General Assembly looking at running for that, which is, you know, a good thing. And given the close margins in the U.S. Congress in Washington, it certainly would become a highly nationalized election as well.
So that's kind of our legislative update. Wanted to let everybody know we are watching this. I'm going to go back briefly to the thing about the weapons and the guns. I am continuing to speak to reporters, and the number one thing I'm saying when asked is our GAE members, we have resolutions, and our resolution says, and this is a quote, GAE is categorically opposed to any educator other than trained resource officers carrying firearms. So that's where we are with that, and we will keep you all updated as the lieutenant governor brings it forth. But we will, I'm sure, I can tell you now, be asking you to contact your state senator and your state representative and speak with them. Go ahead and call them now and tell them this is not a good idea. They're going to hear it from me, but I want them to hear it from LaJoyce. I want your representative to hear from you. Carly, I want your representative to hear from you. This is what the reality is in my school, and this will not work, and this is why. Because just, again, I'm horrified that anyone would think that an educator, that would be the appropriate way to handle this problem. So I'm going to do our first commercial, and then we'll get into our next session, our next topic, and that is for Lobby and Learn. Our GAE Retired is hosting a Lobby and Learn conference on Saturday, December 9th from 10 a.m. to 12:30, and it is open for all members. So if you would like to learn more about the legislature and be prepared to be one of those people who is going to contact your legislators, please sign up and attend the event. It will be virtual. So it starts at 10. You can have your pajamas on and your coffee or your tea and learn more about the Georgia legislature and how you can be an advocate for our schools. So our major topic this evening, I found out when we were at our fall leadership conference just a couple of weeks ago, was talking to some of our members, and they were not aware that the Georgia Department of Education has a replacement for TKES. It is called Georgia Leads, and that it is being piloted this year. So that's why LaJoyce is with us this afternoon. Her school system, Muskogee, is one of the 12 systems that were chosen to pilot the new Georgia Leads. So, LaJoyce, if you'll just kind of give us the overview about it. And I know Carly's going to have questions. And I would say, Carly, you ask because you're in the classroom right now. And that's the questions we need. And if anyone has questions, if you'll put them in the comments, we will definitely ask. But LaJoyce, just tell us, what is Georgia Leads?
All right. Georgia Leads was developed in response to 2022 teacher burnout report that the Georgia Department of Education conducted. And so what it's designed to do is what we call the 3 R's. We want to recruit, retain, and we want to keep teachers in the classroom, essentially. And so the whole program is one big, massive coaching evaluation tool. At no time in my training and for Georgia Leads did we focus on anything punitive. The whole gist of it that we understand is that teachers, instead of being evaluated on their 10 key performance indicators, we take those indicators and we break them up based on the level that the teacher's working at. For instance, if you're a first-year teacher, they have a name for those teachers. They're called our novice teachers. And so there are certain part of those those TAPs that we're looking at, those performance skills that we're looking at, that a new teacher should have. So instead of evaluating a new teacher on all 10, there are certain performance indicators that they're to be evaluated on. Then as they increase in their experience in the classroom, we add on to their evaluation additional teacher performances. And so by the time that teacher reaches 5 or 6 years of experience in the classroom, they're ready to be evaluated on all 10. And so the goal is to keep teachers in the classrooms by working through them with what I call, I'm an academic coach now. And the whole process that I'm learning just from the training, it's a massive coaching indicator. The whole thing is just about coaching the teacher to get better at their craft, to keep them in the classroom. And so it's broken into 3. When they go in and we look at teachers, there are 3 areas that a teacher will be evaluated on. This year, it's not an evaluation process because we are still piloting. But those 3 components, again, are your teacher performance standards, which will make up 50% of your evaluation when they do start evaluating. The second component of a teacher's performance we'll look at the students' growth and their achievement. And the school districts are going to set that criteria. Each district will have a different indicator that they're using. And that's about 30% of the evaluation. And then the last part is 20% of their evaluation, which is that teacher's personal growth, their advancement, any trainings that they're a part of, anything that enriches their knowledge base or their skill base to continue in the profession. That will make up 20%. So those are their 3 components. But again, the whole goal is to recruit, to retain, and to recognize those teachers who are growing in the profession.
Okay, so Carly, I'm going to jump in here. My first thing is, I realize, and LaJoyce, I think you're going to recognize, it sounds a lot like what we've already got with Teacher Keys. And part of that is because of what's in the law. And that is something that we will be working on because we looked at the law and the 50% for the TAPs and the 30% for student growth and the 20% for professional growth, that's in the law. So in order to change that, we have to change that. So I think my question is, how is this going to be different from, because we all know that some districts have weaponized Teacher Keys.
Mm-hmm. They have. One of the things, because there are a number of observers that are going into the room to look at teachers, the difference in this one is they're stressing we don't want this to be punitive. We want you to look at this, or the trainers want us to look at this as a growth model. And that's what they stressed all along. Even when we look at the rubric, the goal is to look for evidence of these teacher performance standards. If it's mentioned, that's the way we're trained to treat the evaluation tool that we use when we go in and talk to the teachers or we observe the teachers. But the platform that we enter the information in, each teacher, based on their years of service, they have a different observation tool that we have to use. So that is different. Again, the focus for each band of teachers or each teacher type is different. So the evaluation tool is different. What we're looking for is different. And that's another key thing. And then there are so many observation cycles before you get to that administrator's actual evaluation. If you are a new teacher, you have up to 3 before your administrator actually comes in to do your final evaluation. And the number of those evaluations will be different. Those observation cycles are different based on your teacher type. So if you're considered an accomplished teacher, you have 1 all year, which is different than when we used to do those walkthroughs. We're not using the word walkthrough, we're using coaching cycles or feedback cycles is actually the words that they use. So a feedback cycle, you know, like when someone says feedback, that's not evaluated. That we're looking at and giving you information and feedback so you can get better, so that when you get to that final evaluation by your administrator, whoever's coming in, you're ready to go. We didn't have that under Teacher Keys. In Teacher Keys, when you came in, you got that information and it goes in your Teacher Key evaluation. We didn't have a feedback cycle. Here you have a number of feedback cycles for you to grow from. And then, of course, if there's academic coach in the building, they work with you to help improve in those areas of weakness to get you ready for that administrator's evaluation.
So are you telling me that people other than administrators will be conducting these these evaluations prior to the actual administrator coming in? I'm just trying to understand who's going to decide who comes in to see you and help you prior to the administrator doing their evaluation.
That's a great question, Carly. We call them not evaluations.
Okay.
It's feedback cycles. And so your feedback, that's what they're called now. They're not called, the observation is the only one. Everybody gets that observations depending on your type, but more depending on your level. Some of us get more feedback cycles before we get to that one evaluation. And that's the one that's going to count. And so your academic coaches are observers. They can come in and observe you and give feedback. You may even have someone from your teaching and learning department at your district level that may come in and give you feedback to help you grow. It may be even a different administrator that comes in, whoever your building or whoever your district is approved to be observers in the building that can give that feedback. We cannot enter our feedback on the administrative side. So there's a platform Georgia Leads has, just like TKES. When TKES it enters in your profile for your evaluation. It's not the same thing with Georgia Leads. Georgia Leads has a side that an observer like me, I can take my information and enter it. It does not count on you, and it can't be put in on your administrative side. I don't even have access to go in on the administrative side and enter what's called an evaluation. I go into the side and I only have rights to go into what's called a feedback cycle. That's all. And it's not to be used against the teacher. It's not even to be considered on the administrative side when they go in and enter your actual observation. Only what's on that administrative side is what counts. Whether it's district people that come in, the coach, department chair, whoever comes in and gives you a feedback feedback cycle that goes on a different side of the platform. It does not go on the evaluation side of the platform in your profile.
So I hear you saying that they're trying to get away from punitive, but it also doesn't sound like the feedback cycles are going to be beneficial if you only get, I mean, they're supposed to be beneficial in that they're going to help you improve until the administrator gets there and does theirs. But I know some teachers have had to download or upload information into their TKES evaluation to help support that they are doing certain things that perhaps the administrator didn't see when they came in their room. So I'm hoping that some of this will be beneficial in that if the administrator doesn't see something, someone else in the feedback cycle did and has documented it, so that that can be a benefit for the teacher. So they're not receiving a punitive score just because it wasn't seen at that moment in time. Still seems like we're going round and round.
Well, one of the things that we have when we look at the rubric, we debrief. When you put and this is also something that's different from TKES. When you get your feedback cycle, and within that 2 to 3 days period, whoever does your observation has to give you an opportunity if there's something that wasn't quite evident, to just have that conversation or say, well, I didn't see this. Did you have your learning targets up? I didn't see it on your board. Did you say it at the beginning of your lesson? And they say, oh yeah, it's a conversation that you get to have. And you're right, there are no documents and volumes of evidence and artifacts to upload. That's not what this platform is for. This platform is looking to help you, like I said, improve your craft. So that part we don't do. All that uploading with documents, all 10 standards, we're not doing that in Georgia Leads. When you get your feedback cycle, if there's something that's marked, didn't quite see this, can you tell me if you had evidence of this? And that's a conversation between the observer and the teacher. And if the teacher wants to provide that information or wants to provide evidence of that, that's at that time they can do that. But remember, each teacher type is different. Teacher type number 1 is only going to be evaluated on knowledge, professional knowledge, and planning instruction. That is it. If you are a 2nd year or 3rd year teacher, then we're going to be looking at positive learning environment, instructional strategies, and assessment strategies. It builds. It's building. So that's the focus. So that's why I said even the rubric for what we're looking for, it's targeted. That is very different from TKES. TKES, they may go in there and look at all 10 each time they go in there, all 10 of those performance standards. With a 1st year teacher, that really was unfair. And so it's a stair-step process. So it's a little different. I may go and of course, remember when I get to year 2 and 3, you're still going to have planning and knowledge because you're now a 2nd or 3rd year teacher, but we're going to add on 3 additional teacher performance standards. And so it builds, but you will have time to communicate through your feedback cycles with whoever coming in and doing your observations. And those people who are doing those observations are also having those conversations with whoever does your evaluations. But you're not going to be uploading tons of information like we did on TKES.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Carly. One more thing because I think this is going to bring about some more questions, maybe from our listeners, maybe from you, Carly. LaJoyce, I know that one of the things that is included in the standards now is not only what the teacher is doing, but it also includes what the students are doing.
Correct.
And I think I want you to talk about that a little bit, but also how I am very, 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 everybody knows, I always say, don't write a goal that is not within your control. So how are those student aspects written so that it is not something that you are being evaluated on your students and something that's out of your control, but how you are guiding students, I guess is what I'm wanting to say.
Okay, and I believe I understand what you're asking. When we go in to look at teachers, and I have in front of me a rubric or an indicator. And for instance, if it was a new teacher, there's 2 things on this indicator. One, we look at what the teacher is doing. There's a set of evidence or indicators for the teacher. And then there's another side on the rubric that looks at what are the students doing. And so, for instance, if we're looking at a new teacher, she knows, understands Georgia Standards of Excellence. What are the evidence and indicators that teacher knows that? That's one part. But then on the other side, for the student side, there are also performance indicators that are on their rubric. What should the students be doing? Are they engaged in standard lessons? And then they also give evidence or indicators to look at, but we're not limited on that rubric to just these evidences or indicators. It may be something else that we can write in that is also, we're also using as evidence that yes, these students are engaged in standards-based lessons and learning. So the rubric now, very different from TKES, has a teacher side of what the teacher should be doing. And then also on the other side, there's what the students are doing. And then of course, it gives us suggestions of what to offer the teacher to help her or him improve on their side. But it also gives suggestions to what the students could be doing. There's always suggestions and feedback. There's always suggestions that they give us. We call them actionable feedback for the teacher, actionable feedback for student engagement. And that's through all of the rubrics that they give us. So we're looking at two different things. What are the teachers doing? Those evidence and indicators. What's the students doing? Their evidence and indicators.
I wonder about the part where the student, I guess, test scores, student performance is going to be part of the calculation. I know you said that would be based on the local. That would be up to the local.
Right.
I'm wondering if they're going to have some type of requirement that instead of it being based on the previous year's performance, like a group of students you taught one year and then they're comparing a completely different group of students. Am I making sense? I'm worried about that because I like a pre-test at the beginning of the year and then a post-test at the end of the year is a better indicator of where that student has grown than looking at, let's say, a 5th grade year and a 6th grade year.
You are absolutely right, Carly. When we were going through our implementation for component 2, because we had those same questions, one of the things that they placed in here in this clause, and I highlighted this, districts and schools have the flexibility to choose indicators that reflect goals and initiatives that are unique to their community. So that's going to depend on what your school district decides and or what your schools use as indicators of success. And it's going to be important for our members to make their voices heard at those district meetings as to how they want their schools to roll out those indicators for their success. But they're leaving it up to the community, which is not what was happening in the past.
Yeah, not at all. And that concerns me too, because many of our districts have board meetings that take place while we are in school. So we don't have the opportunity to get to speak at those meetings. So that's a little bit concerning as well.
Now ours in our district happen after hours, about 6 o'clock. But one of the things I will, and this is above what I can answer, but just a suggestion, even if there's a representative for the schools that can go down and speak on behalf of the teachers. But the bottom line is we need GAE members to get mobilized and make their voices heard and press those school districts to have those meetings at times that are favorable for everyone to attend.
Yeah.
Agreed. Very much agreed.
Thank you, LaJoyce, for saying that, because I was on the advisory committee and I can tell y'all, y'all know me well enough to know, sometimes I can get I can get a little bit loud. I can get a little bit forceful. And I did, because when they told us what some of the districts that are in the pilot had chosen, I'm like, wait a minute. Were the teachers involved? Did the teachers choose this? Because the districts do have that option. And LaJoyce, thank you for saying it. Our members are going to have to be involved, and you are going to have to be there ready to say when the administration says, well, we're just going to do what we've always done and we're going to use Georgia milestone scores. And if you don't have if you're not in a tested class, we're going to use the district average. Our members are going to have to be there to stand up and say, no, that's not a valid reflection of what I'm doing, and you've got to change it. So I'm glad you said that. And Carly, I'm glad you asked the question because, this is something, if our members sit back and just let it happen again, then,
It's gonna happen.
it's going to happen. And we have the option going into this new, when it comes, that we're telling you now, when it's in the pilot, get ready. You are going to have to speak up.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree, Carly. That's right. When we get these, if we don't say anything at the end, we learn how they're coming up with this indicator, and then everyone's upset. But this is the time now, and we are in our district. We've already pulled together some of our school leaders to start looking at how we want to analyze student performance, especially with the COVID years. And that data was definitely impacted by that regression, that learning regression. So we definitely don't want to use prior data because that's going to have a negative impact on what we're doing now, even 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah. And everybody's going to say we don't want to go back to slows. And yes, we all know those were a mess. But we need data that is to the students in our class and that is reflective of what they were supposed to learn in our class. Kindergarten, you can't judge me on 5th grade scores when I didn't teach the 5th graders. Carly, I'm going to go to your middle school science now. Don't judge you based on what last year's kids did versus this year's kids, because that's not. Last year's kids may have been really, really high at the beginning and they stayed really high. And this year's kids may be really low at the beginning and they're not going to get there, but they can make tremendous growth. And it's going to show that the scores didn't change. So that's really one of those things that we need to remind everyone to be ready for. And I'm going to jump in really quick with a commercial because we want to invite everyone to join us at our day at the Capitol, February 22nd. Everything we've been talking about tonight, legislators need to hear from you. We were thrilled with the number of people we had last year. If you came last year, come back. It will be great again. If you didn't come last year, come this year. Our day at the Capitol, we start in the morning. We have coffee and pastries for you in the morning. We usually have some guest speakers. We go over to the Capitol and help you meet with your legislators. And then we come back and have lunch and have more legislators. We hopefully come back and speak with us again. And it is a great day. So I'm going to put the registration in the comments. So everybody, if you can sign up now, it is ready. And we will have more information for you as we get closer about where we will be, parking, all those logistical things, but definitely sign up for our day at the Capitol. And
so I have,
you go ahead.
Well, I had a question about the classes, and this is always a question that comes up. The classes that are not tested courses. What I mean by tested courses is like, for example, Georgia Milestones classes. And how are they going to, or how are they proposing that they will evaluate that 30% of a teacher who doesn't have a standardized test for their course?
Let me give you an example, and that's a great question. For that particular component 2, when we are looking at indicators for student growth, in the Georgia Leads manual, I'm going to go ahead and go to this page. There are 2 success indicators. One is a state assessment, and that's going to be a district decision. So the examples are, of course, milestones, CCRPI closing gaps, readiness, graduation rates. That's indicator 1. Indicator 2 could be local assessments that provide achievement data common to all schools. They could use norm reference assessments that are administered across the district. They could use reading and math assessment implemented at districts or schools. They could use Lexiles. They can use DRC Beacon growth scores. They also have a component in here that's non-academic measures. And this may benefit those classes, again, that don't have those state assessments. You can have attendance data. That's something that can be in here. They can have behavior data. They can use climate surveys. These are just some of the examples. The list can go on and on of different school decisions. And this list that I'm reading here, that's non-academic measures, many of these are at the school level decision. But as far as the district level, they're not limited to just Georgia milestones. There are a number of other indicators that they can use that will hit all the courses, whether it's GMAS or not. Again, it's gonna matter that our members go out to the board meetings and listen to the suggestions of their leaders, because if their leaders are not well versed on component 2 and the use of data to measure growth, you're going to get a response and you're going to get a measuring tool that you don't like, and you're going to be stuck with it. So you need to go out there and let your thoughts be heard of how the district can make this particular component of teachers' evaluations reflective for non-GMAS and GMAS courses, because it's not limited to this list that they're given in our implementation manual. It really is open to the flexibility of the community of that district.
And I would like to think that even for the GMAS tested courses, they wouldn't limit it to the Georgia milestones.
Right.
I know a lot of teachers are very disgruntled about that because those are not good measures of one year to the next, especially in subjects that don't build upon each other. We have a lot of subjects that what you take in, sixth grade doesn't connect to what you're taking in seventh grade. It's different curriculum. Same thing in high school. What you take psychology or sociology, those are not connecting. They're similar. They're in the same wheelhouse, but they're not the same thing. They're not building like maybe math or language arts would build. And even in math, I remember high school when we took geometry one year and algebra another year,
They don't connect.
They don't connect.
You can use graduation rate. You can do pathway completions, especially at the high school. There's a number of pathway completion. There's a number of assessments that this district has available. They just need somebody to help think it out and think it through and make sure it's something that's doable and beneficial to everybody involved. And I agree, those classes that don't build, so the milestone is just not the only way. Some kids just aren't great test takers, but they're brilliant, and it's not a true measure of what that teacher's done in the classroom. Should that be the only one? Absolutely not. So we need our members to help our districts think this through to make the best decision. Yeah.
I'm going to go back and say it again. Our members are going to have to be involved in this process, and we as leaders are going to have to let them know what's happening. And LaJoyce, don't go anywhere, because we're going to be calling on you. And we've got members in other districts that are in the pilot to let everybody know what this is going to be and what they're going to have to do. Now, for those of y'all that are watching, Carly, we don't know yet when the intention is for this to move statewide. I know there's the initial pilot this year. The state is developing, we have teacher keys. There's also leader keys. And while the pilot for Georgia Leads for Elevate, which is the part for teachers, is happening right now, they are developing the part for leaders, which is called Accelerate. And that hasn't been pilot, that's just being developed. So they will have to pilot that as well. So it may not be next year. We don't know when. We don't have the timeline yet, but we need our members to begin thinking about it. We need our members to begin paying attention. So when they start making these decisions, we're ready. LaJoyce, I guess I really see for new teachers, a first year teacher, that instead of 10 standards, there's 4 things that you're looking for. And we all know, if I tell people all the time, if you tell me you didn't cry your first year teaching because you were overwhelmed, I don't believe you. We've all been there. So what else is really good about this? not just for a new teacher, but how is this going to take some of the things off the plate and hopefully reduce some of the burnout for that veteran teacher?
Well, for the veteran teacher, one of the things that I do like that Georgia Leads is doing, and that is encouraging even our veteran teachers to continue to improve themselves, and they have what's called badges they can earn. But for the veteran teacher, there's an opportunity for them to have, they apply for the accomplished teacher. They can only have one evaluation for the year. That's it. If they are a demonstrated accomplished teacher, they have, I think it's 10 or 12, I have to go back and look. They have more than 5 or 6 years and they apply for it. That's the only thing, they do have to apply for it. They only have one observation a year. They don't have any feedback cycles. They are teacher leaders in the building. There are incentives that they're rolling out, pay incentives is a goal in the future for teachers to earn badges of professionalism through professional development programs and courses that they take. I see it really as a great opportunity to build leader capacity within teachers. And new teachers really have a plan. I cried. I had a mentor, but I didn't have a mentor. We didn't have academic coaches in the building. I never had an evaluation tool that gave me an opportunity to see my weaknesses, get that feedback and fix it and become better so that I'm ready when that administrator comes in a room. I never had a program that looked at how to help me strengthen what I do and then give me incentives for doing that. And that, again, that's through the badges that teachers can earn each time they take any type of professional development, any type of endorsement, anything that makes them a stronger teacher. So it's really has moved, in my opinion, from a punitive, and that's the way it appears right now, to a support for teachers, especially new teachers and for accomplished teachers. That I got you feeling is what they promote. We're not, I got you. That's not what this is about, even for the accomplished teachers. This is about, hey, let me help you get better and let me improve you in this area so that when it's time for your evaluation, you're ready. So I think that part, the red pen is gone. It's back to black.
and I'm just going to say, I'm a little bit cynical. I know that is the intention.
It's the intention.
And I think, once again, you hear the devil's in the details. Well, in this instance, I think the devil will be in the implementation and ensuring that the intention leads to an implementation across the state in all our schools, that intention remains, that it's not a gotcha.
That's right.
And I think
or that it doesn't become a pay for performance.
Right.
And then other people are left out.
Right.
Because maybe they don't have the experience, but they're fantastic teachers and their students are growing. I don't want to see someone that's going to add to teacher burnout. I feel like if we do this paper performance thing and some people are just working themselves to the bone and they're at a school where their kids need more. I'm at a Title I school and sometimes the kids need more than other places where I've taught, and giving that can burn you out if you feel like you're giving and you're not getting anything in return,
right?
Or at least not being recognized for what you're giving.
And I think that's something that we will GAEs, we're going to have to pay attention to,
Right.
And that it doesn't become that, because yes, I've taught a Title I school my entire career, and different schools require different things, and it's one of those things that we have to understand that in a Title I school, professional development for me, I'll use me as a kindergarten teacher. I had one year, I had a student with a disability that I had never heard of until the parent walked in the door, and she's going to be in your kindergarten class, Ms. Morgan. And yes, we're going to need to watch and see. She may need to be in a different setting, but she's starting kindergarten here with you. And I feel like I should have been given credit because Mama gave me a pamphlet and I spent the weekend doing research and learning about what was going on with the student so I could help that student. And I would hope that some of that will be respected, and you should get credit for doing that the same as you should get credit for taking a college course.
Mhm.
You know, we should respect that both of those are ways to help someone become a better teacher for students.
Absolutely. We just have to keep an eye on, right now it's new and it's fresh, and
Right.
and the intent seems to be what they say it is, for teacher growth and development. At no time, punitive actions are never discussed. We don't even use punitive terms, but you're right. We just need to watch how this evolves and watch what this becomes once it's at the pilot stage.
I do like that the locals have some say in how it's being implemented. That can be a good thing. It just depends on how they go about the implementation. But I do like that. So that could end up being a very positive thing. So I am glad to hear that.
Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, so I'm thinking about a small system that has one high school and they have a common assessment for U.S. history. And, you know, it's a common assessments. So maybe they would use that common assessment because every child in the district's, you know, taking that assessment that they've developed. And as a teacher, if I've helped develop it, I would feel good about it. I agree. And it is 7:27, so our time is almost up this evening. I want to thank you again, LaJoyce, for being here. Thank you, Joe, as always, for our legislative updates. Carly, thank you. I know I put you on the spot this evening to ask the questions, but I wanted somebody that hadn't heard all this before to be thinking about it. Our next Facebook Live will be November 15th, and that is 2 weeks from today, and that is Education Support Professionals Day. So we will have some of our wonderful ESPs with us. And then December 6th, we will have our Facebook Live. That will be our holiday giveaway. So if you have not done this yet, you have ways to win some cash on December 6th. You recruit a new member, one new member, your name goes into a drawing for $250. If you recruit 10 new members, and you can do it in the next month, I know you can, you'll go into a drawing for $500. And if you simply go to our update site and enter your personal information and update that with us, whether it's changed or not, just go on and do the update form. You will be entered for $250, and we will be doing that December 6th. So thank you all for being here. Carly and LaJoyce, I hope y'all had a good day today. The kids weren't too high on all the sugar, were they?
No, they were great. They were high school kids.
Well, I was in middle school, so
Yeah.
they were still good, but I did see quite a few trick-or-treating last night.
Yes. So thank you all. And everybody have a good day tomorrow and Friday, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.